G'day, Bomber fans. It is February 13th today, which means two things. One, happy Valentine's Day. You look absolutely beautiful watching this video. Never change. Two, it means we are less than a month away from the start of Essendon's AFL season. We kick off next month, March 13th, against the Hawks. That is scary. This year is moving way too quickly for my liking, and I think it's moving too quickly for Essendon's liking as well, because we are so close to the start of the year and we have no clue what our round one team is going to look like. I reckon there'd be so many players, 30 to 35 players on our list right now thinking they are a genuine chance to play against the Hawks in round one. You not only have all these uncertain injury time frames and players kind of rushing the clock to make it back in time, but you also have all these younger players who've got their taste of AFL footy and probably want more early into the season in 2026. So today I'm going to be trying to kind of narrow it down a little bit and go through each position zone by zone and highlight the players that I think are in the mix to genuinely play in round one. This isn't me predicting the best 23 or anything like that. It's probably more so me predicting the squad of 25 to 30 that could be in the mix for that game. So this is obviously going to be quite a bit of my own personal opinion, but it'll also be based on training and insight we get there and the positional changes that have been made to start the year. So a lot to talk about today. It's going to be a longer video as pretty much every video has been this year. But also, speaking of longer videos, coming up next week, I've got part 2 of the pre-season recap with Fiona from Bomber Banter. You guys loved that video when I did it last time. We're winding it back and doing it again next week, so stay tuned for that. But let's just get into this one. We're going to start by talking about the Rucks because it's easy to talk about them. There are 3 names, 3 natural main ruckmen, and I'm ruling 2 of them out completely, to be honest. So Nick Bryan obviously is probably our main ruck, but he is injured at the moment. He's recovering from that ACL. I think he's going to be right to go early into the season, but round 1 against Hawthorn would be pushing it. I don't think he's going to play in that game. Pretty confident in that. The other is Vigo Vicentini that I'm ruling out. I just think this guy is unfortunately too young and raw to get proper game time early into seasons at the moment. We saw how he went last year against Luke Jackson and his other game in the AFL when he played, and he was, not found out because we were kind of expecting it a little bit, and I honestly liked the way he played and his aggression, but he did look a fair way off it at AFL level, which is to be expected with such a young player. So Nick Bryan and Vigo Vicentini I'm ruling out completely, and I guess that leaves one name, and that is Lockie Blackiston. I think, look, in an ideal world, our ruck stocks are better than this. I don't think it's unreasonable to say that heading into round 1, we do have one of the weaker ruck groups in the competition, but I still think it's important to see Blackiston get consecutive games to start the year for the Bombers. I think he's going to stick around on our list for a few years as depth anyway. I don't think he's going to be our starting ruckman going forward, but with rules changing to suit players like him, those athletic type rucks, he could 100% play alongside Nick Bryan or stay on the list as depth behind Nick Bryan, as he's kind of doing now. He's playing now because Nick Bryan is injured, and if that's going to happen, we do have to see how he goes thrown in the deep end, against some of the better ruckmen in the competition like Lloyd Meek and Ned Reeves. So yeah, I think Blackiston's got his work cut out for him. I think because of that, and I might be spoiling another position here, but Peter Wright is going to play an important role in the ruck as that dual ruckman. I think he'll obviously be mainly that key forward out of the goal square type, that marking target down the line. But he's gonna be playing as a dual ruck as well, with ruck minutes under the belt to assist Lockie Blackiston, who realistically hasn't played a full game of AFL in the ruck yet. So our ruck department, realistically, if you think about it, it's not looking the best. That kind of goes without saying. After Peter Wright as depth, there really isn't much more to it as well. That you've got, I guess, Nick Cox, who's played ruck before. I think Archer May could potentially, at a stage in his career, be that Peter Wright, key forward who can pinch it in the ruck type player. But after that, it really isn't much at all. So that's probably one position we have to worry about heading into the year. Eventually, Nick Bryan will come back and things will look a bit better. And the question will then be, how does Bryan and Blackiston fit in together? As for now, though, it's going to be Blackiston starting ruck with Peter Wright backing him up in the key forward line. I guess let's continue talking about the centre of the ground and get onto the midfield, the engine room. I think our midfield is, on paper, stacking up pretty well against Hawthorns, if not better than Hawthorns. I think we've actually got a bit more to our midfield than the Hawks Hawks do, which is saying something, because I think we've actually got a pretty one-dimensional midfield as well. No offense, Essendon midfield, if you're watching this video. So for starters, you've got Zach Merritt, who's probably the most dynamic midfielder that we've got, and the best by foot. He's a blend of inside and out. So Zach Merritt is obviously a starter. You've got Sam Durham and Jai Caldwell, who are just absolute bulls. These guys have to play week in, week out, and when they do, it will be regularly in the midfield, especially Jai Caldwell, who I see as mainly a pure midfielder for the team. Darcy Parish is the really exciting one. This guy is finally fit in a preseason. Touch wood, fingers crossed. Of course, there are still weeks to go until we play, but it has been a long time since Darcy Parish has looked this good in a preseason. In fact, the last time he played round 1 in a season was against Hawthorn in 2023. So it's been 3 years since he was fit coming into the start of a year, which is awesome, and we hope it stays that way. The big loss is obviously Nick Martin. I think he would give us a lot if he was playing, and it's kind of that, as I talked about with those one-dimensional midfielders, he's not. This is a guy who can play multiple positions, multiple roles. He's got that height as well, but that ball use and that punch and damage by foot, which we just really need in this team, and missing him is unfortunate. I guess our main midfield contingent, the centre bounce boys, are Merritt, Parish, Durham, and Caldwell. I think those are the guys that you can pretty much lock in the team most weeks if they are fit and available. I think after that, it is about looking at rotations and who can come into, for them, but also to complement them. Because I personally, I don't see a whole lot of positional versatility with large chunks of our midfield. As I said, I think we're pretty one-dimensional. I think Parish and Caldwell are going to be mostly pure midfielders and playing, 70 to 80% game time in the guts, and if not, probably resting on the bench. Meanwhile, Durham and Merritt probably have a bit more to them up the field. They can play roles on the forward line. But after that, if we're looking at pure midfielders for Essendon, it is pretty much Elijah Sardis and Dyson Sharp. I think both are in the mix, but I think they're both high volume players. Like, I don't see Sardis playing outside the engine room effectively. Like, he's played on a wing before and I didn't like it. I think same goes for Sharp, honestly. I think he can play up forward on a flank, but if you're doing that, you're taking games away from a natural forward. I don't think we can fit all these midfielders on a forward flank together at the same time without taking away from the team's structure. That's why I don't think these two players can play together round 1. That is Sharp and Sardis. I think it is one or the other. And if both play, I think it's making us slower and less effective as a team, with problems being created in other positions when they're not on the ball. I don't think you can have Caldwell, Parish, Sharp, and Sardis rotating through the same midfield without taking away minutes from guys like Roberts and Kako, to be honest. I think Archie Roberts and Kako, I'm not going to talk about them alongside the midfielders because I still think they're primarily players in other positions. Roberts defence, Kako up forward. But these guys are going to play lots of midfield minutes in 2026. Roberts lately has been looking awesome in match sim. He's got that ground level ferocity. He's actually pretty clean by foot, and I guess he's aggressive by foot as well. And also underrated aspect, but he changes angles with that left foot. Like, we've only got one left-footed midfielder in Zach Merritt. We do need more. That is, it might sound simple, but you do need more versatility with the angles that you can kick from. Isaac Kako is the really interesting one, and I really hope we see him run through the middle a bit more. I hope it's not just something we saw out of necessity last year with all the injuries. I really hope we see a lot of Kako in the midfield when he isn't up forward, because it was fun, it was energetic, it was dangerous. He was causing headaches for the opposition midfielders. So yeah, I think it's interesting. You want to see games or guys like Roberts and Kako get goes in the midfield alongside their position, but the question is, how do you do that if you've got so many midfielders in your starting team? And not only that, but midfielders who are primarily midfielders and not a lot else after that. So that's why I don't think you can really squeeze Sharp and Sardis in the same team if all those other guys are fit. That's the way I see it personally, and I think that's probably going to be the way the club sees it, and that's why most of the time these guys have been on the B team midfield. I think one of them makes it. I think, you want that midfield rotation. If you're predicting who it is between Sharp and Sardis, it's tough at this time of the year, and you can see reasons for both. I think Sardis, obviously, the club want to play him and get games into him, because if you play him through the VFL, he hasn't really been able to break his way into the AFL team. He's dominated games and hasn't got to go. So it might be the case of giving Sardis a clean run at it to start the season, but also Dyson Sharp probably has a bit more to his game as just a general footballer. So that's the midfield. I think it's pretty locked in certain aspects, but the big question really is how we navigate getting minutes into Roberts and Kako and the other non-midfielders, while also giving players like Sharp and Sardis a go. trio. So that's going to be interesting, and I think we'll see how that unfolds a bit over the next couple of weeks in the practice matches. Continuing with the midfield, we have got the wingmen to talk about. So yeah, obviously this is a zone that is evolving a little bit, and it's quite a surprise that we're seeing it evolving because there are some names that are being thrown in here that are interesting. So for starters, Braden Fiorini, new to the club, he's an absolute lock. This guy is going to play every game if fit. If he can avoid injury, he's going to play 23 games for the club. He is not only going to sharpen up and polish up our ball use on the outside, which is really important. It's something we need, but he's also in the leadership group. Like he is so clearly in this team. The main question is what happens on the other wing, because I'm going to include Xavier Dersma in this discussion, and many of you would be, confused as to why I'm even hesitating with that. It's because this guy plays, or he's been training up forward in match sim recently. So he's been a wingman since he's come to the Bombers. He's been a starting wingman and one of our more reliable players. I think he plays regardless, by the way, whether up forward or on the wing. But lately he has been playing forward minutes in match sim and kicking goals there as well. He's been looking pretty good. His last match sim, he was one of the better players on ground from the sounds of things. So yeah, I think this guy plays regardless. And honestly, I'm of the belief that he's going to play both positions regardless. I think he's going to switch between wing and forward. I think that is definitely something that a player can do. And especially if you're a Xavier Dersma who's going to be getting up and down the ground anyway, I think we'll see him play wing and forward minutes in game to start the year to kind of transition into becoming a full-time forward if that is the case. But remember, you can't just lock this guy into a forward flank if you're also including all the midfielders that I was talking about earlier as well. So even though we haven't got onto the forward line yet, we're still talking about it a lot, because a lot of what our midfield does kind of is dictated by, what our forward line does is dictated by what we do with the midfield. So Xavier Dersma been training up with the forwards. I still think we'll see him on the wing for large parts of the game anyway. The question though after that is, if Dersma is up forward for parts of the game, who is replacing him? And we do have an answer, and it's not one you would expect. It is Jackson Pryor. So Jackson Pryor, I'm going to include him along with the wingmen for this discussion and not the defenders, because it is genuinely looking like he might be on the wing a lot, opposite Braden Fiorini on that other wing. And I think this is, it's a fascinating one. He did play wing minutes at Brisbane, we have to say that. And I guess the idea is to brush up field kicking, because he is better suited to that aspect than Xavier Dersma. I just don't know if this guy has the speed and athleticism to run out full games on guys like Josh Weddle and Morrison and these sorts. I'm not sold on the Pryor wing experiment, and I think this is an area of the ground that could be 100% exploited by a Sam Mitchell coach. Imagine Josh Weddle running alongside Jackson Pryor. That is a recipe for disaster. But yeah, if he is 100% in the mix to play on the wing, and if not, I really think he's almost a lock for round one anyway in defense. I think his versatility and adaptability makes him a serious role player, and one that will be used to start the year. And if not Jackson Pryor, if not Fiorini or Dersma, then you're dipping into guys like Nick Cox and Harry Jones, who's probably racing against the clock to be fit anyway, so haven't really included them in the mix. You've also got Angus Clark, but he's more predominantly a defender, I would say, at the moment. I guess he could play wing minutes during games, but I've got him down amongst the defenders. But yeah, the main wingers to look at: Braden Fiorini, Xavier Dersma, Jackson Pryor. Very strange trio. The key defenders, not a lot here to talk about, to be honest. There's really not much to this zone, and that's something I want to talk about in a second, but we'll go through the names. Zach Reid and Ben Mackay are going to be playing. They're looking really fit and healthy. Touch wood, cross fingers, please, because we can't afford an injury to Zach Reid right now. This guy is precious. He's a precious commodity. He's looking really good at training. He was looking so good last year, and I think an underrated aspect as for how good Zach Reid was looking was the importance of Ben Mackay alongside him taking the main forward. So these two are definitely going to be playing in round one against Hawthorn, especially because you've got key forwards like Mabior Chol and Mitch Lewis and maybe Cal Shadir, who are on the taller side. The question after that is going to be what happens with Jordan Ridley. I think it's pretty clear that Jordan Ridley, if fit, is a starting player in this team. He walks into that team alongside Mackay and Reid. In fact, I think if we stay fit down back, these three are at little risk all year of being dropped, given their status at the club and the way they all play together. But Jordan Ridley right now isn't fully fit. He's returning from a hamstring injury that he did in November last year. He's only just got back into drills in February, which means he's been doing nothing but running alongside the oval for the last 2 or 3 months at the hangar. He's very fit, by the way. He's been doing a lot of really hard running, but there is a difference between being fit and being match fit. And Jordan Ridley, if he doesn't get proper minutes in the next 2 practice matches, I mean, it means his match sim minutes for this preseason have been little to none. Like, honestly, I struggle to see him playing round one, to be honest. The plan has always been to integrate him slowly to protect his body, but I wouldn't be surprised if that slow integration and that slow progress continues into the season a bit. But this is a guy that you really don't want to risk. Even if there's a plan to play him round one, I don't think the club will hesitate to deviate away from that plan to make sure his body is in the best spot that it could be for when he plays. So I don't think he's a guarantee to play round one at all. I wouldn't be hedging my bets on it. He may well get limited minutes next week or most likely against St Kilda the week after in the practice matches. But is that enough of a platform to really kick off a season, especially for an injury-prone player like Jordan Ridley? I think he's a fair chance to miss the first game against Hawthorn. And then the question would be, if Jordan Ridley misses that first game against Hawthorn, what do Essendon do with our key defensive situation? Because after Jordan Ridley, you've got Lewis Hayes, who is recovering from an ACL injury. You've got Kale Jarine, who is a key defender, but I wouldn't say ready to play AFL footy yet. In fact, I'd say it is more likely that we use a player from another position as a pseudo key defender instead of Kale Jarine if it comes to that. I think guys like Jackson Pryor and Mason Redmond, who played taller than what they were supposed to last year, they could be in the mix to play on a Jack Gunston type, who's a smaller key forward. I'd think that would be more likely than Kale Jarine getting a game. You've also got Nick Cox as well, who's kind of popping up in a few positions in this video. But yeah, I think obviously Zach Reid and Ben Mackay play. Jordan Ridley's in the mix, but you know, a 50-50 with that injury. After that, with our key defenders, there's really not a lot. And I think that is something we need to, I guess, criticize the list management team for a little bit, because like, I love Matt Rosa. I love what we're building at the Bombers right now. The one thing we're overlooking as a fan base is probably the key defensive zone and how thin it is, and also that combination of it being thin with the injury-prone status. You know, Jordan Ridley is already struggling. We don't know if Zach Reid and Ben Mackay will play full years. We really can't guarantee that at all, and you'd honestly be silly to bet on it. So yeah, I think this is a zone we really need to highlight and address in the coming off seasons, because right now it is far too thin. It's injury prone. It's not good. Moving on to the general defenders, this is a much better zone, by the way. So for starters, there's a few solidified locks in the team. You've got the leadership group. You've got Andy McGrath, the captain, who's obviously going to play, and you'll probably play an important role on one of those dangerous Hawthorn small forwards. You've got Mason Redmond, the vice captain without the title. I think this guy, again, could play taller or smaller than what he is, and that's a really important player to have in your team against Hawthorn, who've got such a dynamic forward line. You've got Archie Roberts, who, let's talk about Archie Roberts, to be honest, because we spoke about him a bit in the midfielders. I've got him listed as defense here because that is his position now, I would say, but I really wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year or even early into the season, we are starting to call this guy a midfielder. I think he is in line to play midfield minutes, even if small ones this year. He's been there in match sim and looked really good. Again, he gives us another angle as one of the only left footers in this 23. And by the way, that is something not talked about enough. Not only left footers in the midfield, like I spoke about changing angles, but you need angles changed and new avenues opened in defense as well. You need that deep in a pocket, using the boundary line. Most clubs have that. Hawthorn have Amon, Adelaide have Worrell, I could go on, but they've got those players who deliver the footy to the left-footed, wingers up the field. You link up better if you're able to kick along with the boundary as your friend. And Roberts, if he plays midfield, can obviously change the angles, but if he does, we're probably going to look to bring in another left-footer in defense to give us more options deep in the back line using that boundary. And that's why I think Jacob Farrow is a serious chance to play round one. Not only do I think this guy is technically ready as a footballer and just a really creative and classy player, and one that we really need to get minutes into to fast track his development and get the most out of him, because I think this guy could be a really good footballer, but I think there's a need for him there, especially if Roberts is moving higher up the field. I think you need to brush up your ball use. You need your left footers in your team. Jacob Farrow's a left footer, great kick of the footy. Enough said. Now, look, I wouldn't say Farrow is a lock to play round one or anything. I just think he is so clearly in the mix for that team. You'd be silly if you discount him altogether. He might make his debut a couple of weeks later. Maybe the club goes with another option instead to start, but he has to be considered. He is definitely in the mix right now, alongside other young players. So I think Angus Clark, he's probably a tough one to get a read on for me, because, if we're thinking about this a couple of months ago, he is a dead set lock to play pretty much every game to start the year. But he has been struggling a bit at training recently, and that's something that we can't really ignore. Like form does matter. If he was playing the way he was playing at training during the season, he'd probably be dropped to the VFL to regain his confidence. And I don't think it's out of the question that that happens to start the year. If we're getting to March and this guy hasn't turned it around and he's still struggling for form, the club, it would be in its right mind to put him in the VFL to start the year, give him some freedom and time to find confidence and momentum to get back into the AFL side with good form under the belt so we can play better footy at the higher level. So, yeah, we don't, it's hard to say why he's struggling. Maybe it's the homesickness that he spoke to me about in the interview. We can't really say, but all that really matters is that he is struggling, and there are other players behind him playing really good or training really well for the Bombers in match sim. And I think these three are really interesting ones to talk about. So Zach Johnson, Sardell Hawley, and Jaden Newen, I think they're all in the mix for the same reason, to be honest. And I think it's because they offer something different to the club than what we currently have. So let's say we want to brush up our ball use and spread the footy more and use the footy better coming out of the back half, which would be important with Jordan Ridley if he is out of the team. Zach Johnson is someone who could come in for that role. Obviously, Jacob Farrow could be playing as well, but Zach Johnson kind of is a like for like with Jordan Ridley in terms of ball in hand. I think they both are very similar players with the way they distribute the footy. Obviously, he's less defensively accountable, but let's say we want that defensive accountability on ground level. We could go with a Jaden Newen, who could really lock down on a Nick Watson or a Jack Ginnivan. Like, let's say those Hawthorn small forwards are too much to handle, and we're thinking that we need to really, close in on them and make sure they don't get a hold of this game. Jaden Newen is the type of player you want to come in for that reason, so he can just lock down and be a pest all game on those pests for Hawthorn. The other one is Sardell Hawley. I think this is similar to Zach Johnson. It would be more a ball movement piece, but it's not kicking the footy and distributing. It's the way that he runs with it and breaks lines with his leg speed. So if the Bombers are thinking we're a bit too slow out there heading into the game against Hawthorn, Sardell Hawley is definitely someone who could come in on multiple roles, wing or defense, and improve and brush up our leg speed out there. So that's a really interesting one. I don't think all three of those guys can play together. In fact, I don't even know if two of them can play together in the same team, but one of them has to be, all three of them have to be considered for one spot, you'd think. I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see one of these three guys in our defense, especially if Jordan Ridley isn't fit and Roberts and Pryor have moved up the field. After that, you've got guys like Max Kondagianis, who's probably not really close to playing footy yet, but later in the year that might be a different story. It's an interesting one. Obviously McGrath, Redmond, Locks, Roberts is going to play, but will it be midfield or defense? And then if that's the case, if Ridley doesn't play as well, who comes in to replace them? So usually our back six is a very solid one, an easy one to navigate with these discussions and exercises that I'm doing. This year, not so much. Luckily, the key forward line is a pretty simple one to discuss. You've got Nate Caddy, who is a certified starter. This guy is not only probably our prime forward, I'd say more our prime forward, not in terms of output, but the fact that you just need to get games into him. Like, if you could pick one key forward to get games into all year, it is Nate Caddy, because he is such a big part of our future, and you want that cohesion and chemistry and connection building alongside his teammates. You've got, he needs support, so you've got Kyle Langford and Peter Wright as well as mature bodies. Kyle Langford, I think, could play multiple roles, not just forward, but maybe push up on a wing to help, whatever that wing situation is. And then you've got Peter Wright as well, who'll be that pinch hit ruck. So it's definitely it's a formidable key forward line, I think, and it's one that gels hopefully nicely together. The question then would be what happens if there is an injury, or who's the fourth in line. I think it'd be Archer May. I think Archer May, I'd say he's in the mix, but only really as a backup in case things go wrong. I think the club likes his aggression and power. It's clearly an asset, not just inside 50, but outside around the ground as well. So yeah, I think he's in fourth in line of the key forwards to be playing. It's just hard to justify putting him in the same team as these other guys against such a mobile Hawthorn defense. So I don't think he plays round one, but I think his name is penciled in next if an injury occurs with the forwards group. After that, you've got more coverage. Liam McMahon is fit, and he's been a regular on the B team at training. I still don't think he plays footy this year without injuries occurring in front of him, and that's kind of just the way I see it. Honestly, it's the same with Archer May a little bit. I think we probably need more from our key forwards than just being reliable in front of goals, and that's Liam McMahon's MO at the moment, especially against Hawthorn. Like, I think, this is the type of player that would be more damaging against the Port Adelaide, who don't have that defensive power out of the back half, but against a team like Hawthorn, who move the footy so well with their mobile key defenders, Liam McMahon is someone who would really struggle on the MCG. in that type of game. You've also got Tom Edwards, who's injured at the moment. He's not going to be right to play round one. Really, I think this is just Caddy, Langford, and Wright, and if there's an injury, Archer May will be next in line. And finally, the small forwards. This is a really goofy zone, and it's gotten really troubling as well with recent news that Isaac Hacko has suffered a hamstring strain. He's likely going to miss both practice matches against St Kilda and Richmond. The good news is he has had a very good preseason under the belt, so even if he returns a week or two before the season to main training, he's probably still done enough to play footy against Hawthorn. So I wouldn't rule him out for round one because of this injury. I think he is still a genuine chance to play, but unfortunately with this setback, he is no guarantee to be there round one against the Hawks, which is annoying because he's honestly the only small forward that I've got locked in this team. Like after that, I don't even know. I think this zone is going to be a revolving door all year. You're going to have players coming into the team, coming out of the team, new partnerships trying to be formed. Will they go mature? Will they go young? There are so many players in this zone with uncertain futures, uncertain, I guess, near futures with 2026 and the way they play as well. My gut feel for round one is that we go mature. I think especially if Hacko doesn't get up, even though Jade Gresham and Matt Guelphy have been on the B team quite often at training, I still think one of those two will play in round one to give the younger forwards that they play with some, I guess, backup and a hand. Gresham, honestly, has been performing really well at training lately, I've heard. So I wouldn't be surprised if he is the one playing in round one. And I know you guys don't want to hear that, but if Hacko doesn't get up, Gresham is kind of the like for like, especially as a mature option. So Gresham is a genuine chance. I'd say Guelphy's a chance for his experience and maturity as well. I'm also looking at Archie Perkins, by the way. He is actually on track to play some practice minutes in the coming weeks, whether it is against Richmond next week or St Kilda, or both, maybe. And if he can get a solid block heading into the season, I know he's had less of a preseason than others, but it is easier to navigate a player on less fitness up in the forward line. In fact, some clubs are going to be using that fifth spot on the bench as a pseudo sub anyway, so that could be a way for Perkins to kind of break into the team early, play less minutes, but with more impact, hopefully. So I wouldn't rule Archie Perkins out of round one. After that, you're looking at younger players. I think there are two that I'm really thinking about. Hussein Elachkar is one. He kicked 4 or 5 goals in the most recent match sim. He's been doing really well. He's been forming a great connection with Isaac Hacko. Their chemistry is undeniable, and the impact that he has on the ball is something that is so crucial in a forward line at AFL level, and we don't have many players that can actually do that in our forward line. The main setback is his fitness, and I think even though for players like Archie Perkins who have that impact role, fitness is less important. He can play 50 to 60% game time. Hussein Elachkar is also going to be a pressure forward, someone who needs to run and chase and hunt, and you need to be fit to do that. So I'm not sold that he plays round one, but I really wouldn't be surprised if he does. Someone that we need to talk about though is Archer Day Wicks. I think this guy is one of the real ones to look at for round one that I don't think too many are seriously thinking about. They're talking about, but thinking about right now. Like, this guy played early last year. I think the club like him in the system. He played before the injury crisis. Didn't set the world alight, but there was a reason he played, and it's because he actually fits into the system pretty nicely. He can link up the field. He's got grit about him as well. We've noticed serious hunger and grit to his game in 2026. I wouldn't be surprised if Archer Day Wicks is playing round one, but I also wouldn't be surprised if instead of throwing in the deep end that early, they go for a more mature combo in a Gresham, Guelphy. Honestly, this zone is just really hard to pick. You've even got Reece Unwin below, who could be in this conversation. I've left him out because I think Day Wicks has kind of taken over him in that regard as that left footer in the last few weeks. But even Sullivan Roby, who's returning from injury, I think this forward line is good luck predicting how it looks for round one. Like, I don't think there is a single name on screen right now that is a lock. I don't think you can lock down a single small forward to play in round one. That is where we're at. That is not a good. It's a fun problem to be having because a lot of these players are young and trying to overtake senior players. But it's not ideal, is it? I think this forward line is going to be shifting and changing so much throughout the season. Good luck predicting how it looks against the Hawks. So yeah, those are all the players that I think are in the mix to play round one. It isn't the whole team. These are just the players that I think the club are considering to have in the round one team. And it's a really interesting one because I mean, you guys would probably even throw in some other names there too, like Unwin and McMahon could 100% be in this conversation as well. But even regardless, that's still 31 players that we need to cut down to 23. A lot of these players, battling injury and whatnot as well, so that'll kind of be the decision made for them. But there are quite a few players who will be thinking they are ready to go in round one and will probably feel stiff if they're not included in the starting 23. Now, obviously, this could all change a lot in the next couple of weeks. The practice matches will tell us a lot, and I'm really keen for those because, I mean, we need to know, like, there are just certain things we don't know about this Essendon team heading into the season that we're going to find out in the next couple of weeks. So I'll be covering those practice matches a lot on the channel. I'll be talking about them a lot on the channel. And I'll also be talking about the preseason more on the channel because remember, I've got Fiona from Bomber Banter here next week to talk about the preseason recap and go over that video that we did last year as well. But guys, I think that's it. Those are the 31 players I've got in the mix for round one. Let me know what you think down below. Do you think I've nailed it? Do you think I'm a silly Billy? That is all. Cheers for watching. Make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. And as always, go Bombers.